That is to say, Thomas, are you ready to switch gears and actually get into your get
Ready?
into
I'm
your actual
ready.
interview?
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, and as Daisy said, for hanging out and being a goof with us, playing Among Us. Daisy, as I update the stream description, do you want to do the honors this week?
I certainly do. Especially this week because I wasn't part of the behind the scenes sleuth meeting. So I
Behind the
especially want to
sleuthing.
thank yeah. So I especially want to thank people who aren't me or Dom. You see us all the time. We talk to people all the time. We like to hang out and talk to you all, and it's great, and we're always on the show. But there's a whole other group of people who help out every single week on Folkwise, who make our show possible, and those are the wonderful, kind, intelligent, technologically advanced, detail oriented, very focused and powerful interview sleuths
Ooh,
who
powerful.
research our guests. They have all different kinds of access to information online, just like we do, and they use their powers only for good to help us come up with the questions. So that is to say, if you hear a question that you think is funny, that you like, people are talking in the chat about it, don't thank me and Dom, thank the sleuths.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy, and thank you, sleuths.
Yes,
Hopefully,
thank you,
something
sleuths.
Thomas gets to say later in the interview is thank
Yeah.
you, sleuths. But with that, I think we should get started. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's go. Let's go. Okay. So first question, you mentioned at the top of the show for people who are watching this on YouTube. This got brought up before the interview started, but Thomas, you are the state folklorist for Washington, but you also spent a long portion of your career as an independent folklorist. So as someone who has been on either side of this, what are like the benefits and challenges of being contracted as an independent folklorist, and how is it different now that you're the director of a state program?
Good question. So I said I spent 2015 until 2022, 7 years being an independent contractor. Um, the the upside, the upside that as I saw it, if one might see it as an upside, is that you got to travel a lot and work in a lot of different places,
Mm-hmm.
um, and with a lot of different organizations, even within something that one might think are similar organizations, they function very differently. So like the most majority they were state folk life programs, but the way that the Missouri program operates and its goals and its resources are very different than the Oregon program or the Utah program and the New Mexico program, all of which that I worked for. So it's just really fun to rack up those kind of experiences to say like, oh yeah, like I spent like 3 weeks in like Wilmer, Minnesota, which is not a town that people go to. It's not these aren't generally speaking tourist destinations. Just that that's really fun if
Yeah.
you like that kind of life and field work experience. That being said, it's also really, really difficult. And I try to be, now that I'm on the other side of this, I try to be really mindful of this. It's really difficult to contract out that field work where you've got someone out there meeting people and doing interviews and making relationships. And then you hand off like a hard drive of materials.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this wealth of digital files, but the state necessarily hasn't, made those relationships or understand how they work. So I haven't contracted a field worker since well, kind of I have, but not in the way I think of field work. But um, it's hard to pass that along so that there's some kind of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like a steady paycheck. I'm not gonna lie. After 7 years, I was getting real sick of the hustle,
Sure.
and so that was really really difficult. Um, but I think that it was really good. It was a really good grounding. It was a really good way to get a broad sense of the public folklore field, and on like a really, because I got to get inside each program, right?
Yeah.
And I really see the inner workings of how they work, and it really informs my thinking here now in Washington about this program and how it should do it, and kind of what we can do with our own resources, but also, and we don't often think about where we are in relation to other programs, but it is helpful to know what other people are doing, so we can kind of like oh, they're doing that. I'll know, Dom does that in Florida. Yeah, I should call Dom and see how he does it, or something like that. So that is helpful. But so there's good and bad of both. I think that contract work is particularly good for people who are just coming out of graduate school, and kind of getting into the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's it's really valuable experience, especially since I think it lets you sit in the reality of field work as this thing that you can never do as well as you imagine it can be done. And you can say that to yourself, but until you're living it, it's a little difficult. So I would also say that gives me a little bit of compassion for field work, that I'm thinking like, well, this isn't quite as what I would like to have, but you're not always in control of these things. There's so many variables.
This reminds me of something Ian Brody said on the show, where he said, I wouldn't wish this job on my worst enemy, but the travel is quite nice.
That is what he said about being a folklorist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish the salary cap on my worst enemy, but I love the work. But I think that we need to, I don't know, this, I'm often just influenced by like the last impactful conversation I had, or the past impactful thing that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm just really feeling like we've been sold a bill of goods on how much our artists are worth and how much our programs are worth. And it's, I think that particularly compared to fine arts, who just have no problem at all, no hesitation asking what I think are astronomical figures for money.
Such a good point.
They'd be like, no, I can't do this for less than $3 million. And they just like act like that's the most normal thing in the world to say. When I would say, oh no, it absolutely can be. And as soon as you say it can be, your funder's going to be like, well, then do it, So, sorry, Daisy, I cut you off.
No, I mean, I'm kind of just thinking out loud alongside you. Like NFTs. I mean, they require such little energy to make, it seems, but are sold for astronomical prices.
God, if we get down on this road right now, it's all the interview is going to talk about. It's because Silicon Valley has all this money and no art critique. Anyway.
But I do want to point out Luomi as a relevant question in the chat.
Ask that question from chat.
So Luomi says, are there any realistic steps we can take as a field to improve that precarious independent folklorist people that is so unstable and hard for early career colleagues? Like, is there a way to improve that, like, unstable piece in between?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I can also copy it too. Are there any realistic steps we can take as a field to improve that precarious independent folklorist people that is so unstable and hard for early career colleagues?
Oh, typo. It should say independent folklorist, period. Yeah. Yes. That makes more sense. That precarious independent folklorist, period. That is so unstable.
Period. That, like, in between period between, like, fresh out of school or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know if there is, because I think that is pretty true of any discipline that I'm familiar with, that there is an early career. I think that we need to be really careful about romanticizing it.
Mm.
The like whole like when I was a little young, starving artist and I was scrappy and I was hungry and I
Yeah.
was like,
I was
no, let's
literally
not.
Jack Kerouac.
It didn't help. I would have made so
Yeah.
much better work if I didn't feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think like we need to like just like accept that as like a great thing, and like even a necessary thing for your and anyone's individual trajectory. I think that that's kind of insane. And I think that generationally, and this is true of everything, we have to be really careful generationally to fall into the trap of like, well, this is what I went through,
Of
and
course.
like that's just hazing. That's just shitty behavior all around. Um, but I'm not sure that there systematically is, because I think that you know there 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 is a certain I don't know if you want it like I don't really want to say it's like paying your dues, but it might be something akin to that of becoming familiar with the field. I mean, I think that we should just pay contractors more. That's one. And maybe just accept that, contract work is often, although not exclusively, done by people who are, kind of early career. I think about this a lot because I'm really curious about the role, and I'm not trying to be critical. I'm really curious about the role of senior independent folklorists, because we do have this other thing where people kind of re-enter the workforce after a career because they do love the work, and they do love meeting people and engaging with traditional artists and communities and events. And of course, that's the great part. That's doesn't always feel like the job part of the job, which it's a phrase my friend of mine just last week said to me, and I'm going to use it all the
The
time. This is the
job part
job
of the
part of the
job.
job. Yeah, I really love that.
I
It's
love the
uh,
recreation part of the job.
I love the recreation part of the job too. Yeah, I love and so I do worry about people who take what might be take that we don't have that many contracts. There's not that much work in this particular field to go
Yeah.
around, and so if there 10 contracts a year that go out, and I mean I'm making up these numbers, I don't know, but if a certain number of those are being taken up by people who already had careers and have retirement
Mhm.
plans and already own
Mhm.
their home and
Yeah.
have their car paid off and all of that, I'm like, that I could point to dozens of graduate students who would kill for that $5,000, $7,000, $10,000
Yeah.
contract. And I wonder if what is better of if we can assume, and I don't think this is necessarily accurate assumption, if we can assume that the senior folklorist is going to turn in better product than the emerging early career, is the field better by getting better materials
Mm.
versus like having that new career folklorist do the work, learn, develop skills that will move, into the future? I'm not sure. And that's even that assumption. I'm not sure that assumption is accurate either. Um, so I think that, just making sure that we're trying to, look out for people in that stage of their career, because it's pretty, I don't know. I've never run the numbers, but there is an early career precarity.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
real thing. We don't have a pipeline. I think if
Mm.
we had a few more pipelines, that would be good.
Yeah.
We are graduate schools are in this really difficult time when we hear these just nauseating stories of some of our elder. This isn't true now, of course. I wouldn't wish being an academic on my worst enemy. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish going on to
It
the
was an
academic.
academic who said that quote in the first
Going
place.
into the academic market. I mean, yeah. I mean, Ian is but like going into the academic job market is terrifying to me. But that used to be a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And that is gone.
Yeah.
And we hear these nauseating stories of professors who got gigs right out, or not even out of graduate school. Like, as soon as you finish your dissertation, we've got a job for you. And that is like the most unhealthy and toxic thing we can, assume on people in school right now. And we just need to realize that there are no pipelines. And I think if we could build a few more, I think some people are doing good work. I think the American Folklife Center is doing really good work at getting their interns. I don't know what they do in terms of placement, but they obviously it's so clear. Like, the interns there are doing real professional work, right? They're not making coffee and making copies. Obviously not, right? They're really, having them do incredible projects that can really advance their individual careers. And I think we should all be on the lookout to make those opportunities available when we can.
Hey, Daisy, didn't you intern there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did, and I did real work.
I feel like, did anyone ask you to make coffee?
No, but I was offered to go get coffee with colleagues all the time, which I think is also a great indicator of a good workplace environment.
Yeah.
So, no, it was. I mean, and that was cool too, because I wouldn't call it casual, but I would call it structured, in that all of the goals that we set were based on things I was interested in, that they paired with whatever skill I wanted to develop. So like we didn't start by saying, I mean, they had some ideas or whatever, but we didn't start by saying like, okay, here's your stuff, you get to work now. We started by saying like, let's meet everybody, and let's talk about what goals you have for the internship, which was like a new experience for me. Like, I never talked about goals during an internship before then. Yeah. So I felt like it mattered and they cared. I don't know. I have all kinds of ideas. But we have more questions.
Yeah, let's get to your next question. Great answer, by the way. Great series of answers. Yeah.
To continue this.
Next question, Thomas. During the pandemic, you coordinated remote fieldwork training efforts. What were some of the immediate needs that you were addressing with those?
It's so interesting, because I feel like I was talking to John Fenn, who at the American Folklife Center, we did a couple of the things. We did a thing or two together during that time. Everything that we did at that time should have this giant asterisk. Then the asterisk says, "We think," or maybe, like, I don't know. I think that I personally had some remote fieldwork projects that I was doing, because I was under contract when COVID hit, and I had huge failures. I had huge failures that were just, I never was able to pull off. I could not pull it off. So, good intentions aside, I'm like, there were just too many things going on. It was COVID, so like even the technical side was just a factor. There was a practical sense on two fronts. One, that things like projects and ethnographic contracts and efforts just needed to be canceled. And I just didn't believe they did need to be canceled. I think that they all needed to be adjusted and pivoted to something. There was also I'm not a professor, but I was hearing this kind of thing, this twittering going on, that professors were suggesting to graduate students that ethnographic projects were not what they should be doing for master's theses or dissertations or things like that. And they really needed to do textual analysis or archival or something that was more doable. And I thought that was bullshit, because I thought that, for two reasons. One, that this was a time. We didn't know how long it was going to last, but I think we all knew it was not going to last forever. And the thing that the people who I was talking about this with, John Fenn being among them, Andy Kolovos being among them, Jessica Turner, Mark Miyake, we all kind of agreed that, like, well, we should just like add this to our toolkit.
Yeah.
Right now, it is our primary, but I mean, we're experiencing the result of that right here, right? Like we're all just better at remote communications. We're better, me and my showing on Among Us aside, but we're all a little bit more sophisticated in how these things work, right?
Yeah.
My parents can Zoom right now. That was not true in 2019.
Yeah.
And so when someone says, let's hop on a Zoom call, right? We know what that means. Or like, I don't want to do this I'm not feeling that well. Could we do this interview via Zoom? We all like have that capability now. And I think that is a great takeaway, even if it was one born out of necessity and needed to be done very quickly. It's funny because, I work at a humanities council right now, and one of my COVID great shames was that when COVID hit, I had a grant from the Utah Humanities Council. I was a Utah Humanities Fellow to do an oral history project in a small town in southern Utah that is a melon growing capital. Green River, Utah. They're famous for their melons. They've got melon days. They've got the melon queen. They've got the melon parade. It's fantastic. And there are 3 families in this town of like less than 1,000 people who like run these melon empires. And no one had ever like done oral histories of those growing families. And so I had been doing some other work in this town, and I thought this would make a great project. I was all set to go, and I remember it was March 8th when I called my first interviewer, and I said, it seems like this thing that they're talking about is going to be something. So maybe could we just postpone for like 2 weeks? Like we'll just like, maybe like late March, maybe April, I'll come up then. And he said, yeah, that sounds fine, But I never did it. I never did the project at all.
Yeah.
Because
I
2
wanna know
weeks
about
turned
Melon
into 2
Queen.
years. And so I did some preliminary stuff. I went to Melon Days. Melon Days was like a few months before I was going to start, but it was great. So Utah people, someone should go do that project. I got the names and phone
Ian
numbers.
Halligan, if you're
Plenty of
listening.
Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ian Halligan, are you listening? There's plenty of
Yeah.
Utah folklorists we know, so.
Let's see
So,
Shelly hang out with melon people, actually.
Sounds fun.
There's this whole thing in this tiny town in southern Utah. It's great. Jen Joy Jameson has worked for them. I feel like some other folklorists have worked with them. I was put on their track on the hunt from Adrian Decker when Adrian was back
cool.
in Utah.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah. So the idea with all of that was that we don't need to cancel them. We need to pivot, and it behooves us all to learn these skills and learn what a USB microphone is, how it's different from an XLR microphone,
Oh my
how
god, yeah, true.
to record via Zoom, how to because these things. I mean, we've really just come a long, long way in the last 3 years in terms of that. So yeah, I'm glad that I feel like ethnographers, I would say, largely do feel like they have those skills.
Mhm.
I would like to believe that.
I think so. And I also think you answered the follow-up question I was going to ask with that answer, which means great answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Um So this is another fieldwork question that I want to get at, and I think it's something that I think you're kind of known for in the field. But Thomas, uh, what's your secret in field working about like turning private spaces into public discourses? And
Hmm.
yeah, thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's interestingly put. Um,
Thank you,
I
Sleuth.
think that I think that so I think that there's two kinds of privacy.
Mm,
I think that there's privacy that is intended to stay private, and there's privacy out of circumstance
yeah.
that just happens to be private, but doesn't need to stay private. But it's often that these spaces, no one has ever asked to come in them, or asked to, and that could be a physical or a discursive space.
Yes.
I think about so I think that there's a practicality to this. Um, Anyone who's worked with me for more than 5 minutes will hear me say that the hardest thing about field work is that you live on other people's schedules.
Mm.
Is that you just have to be awake when they're awake and ready to go when they're ready to go and be ready to do what they're ready to do. Your eat, sleep, whatever schedule, be damned. Like you got to go when you got to go. And
Yep.
that is the hardest thing, absolutely. But I think about the kind of quote unquote private spaces that I've occupied based on that ethos. I'm thinking about um, this small town in Minnesota, Wilmer, Minnesota, and ending up just being in this guy's minivan, who was a guy I met on the street. So it's a deeply East African Muslim town.
Hmm.
Huge population of Somalis and Eritreans and Ethiopians. And I met this guy, um, Muhammad, because half the people I met were named Muhammad, um, on the street. And he ended up being, what they would say, like a star informant. And he was super interested in what I was doing. And he took me around to meet a bunch of people. And we were just to hang out one night, and it was pretty cold, and everything was closed. And we just sat in his minivan and talked for a couple hours,
Mm.
and it was a very private space, but we had built that over, not that long, like a week. We'd only known each other like a week. He was so ready to welcome me into this space, both physically and discursively, because I just don't think a lot of people ask about it, you know. And he was just interested. He was excited to talk about, the things that are going on with the African community, with the Muslim community. And so really, it's such a cool town. It's one of these like really great, deeply diasporic towns that you would just go. I would went several days without seeing anyone who wasn't African. And I remember like driving in my car and seeing this row of little kids like in elementary school, and they were crossing the street all holding hands, right, like buddy system. And mostly they were white kids, and I stopped myself and I was like, oh right, white people also live in Minnesota. I kind of forgot about that because I just hadn't like spent any time with white people in weeks, which was just kind of a funny space to be in. But I think that that's what's happened to me fairly often, is that through just a general interest in what people are about. I remember being in a back room of a barber shop at probably midnight in Lincoln, Nebraska, with this Yazidi group.
Mm.
Yazidis are an ethnic group from the Middle East.
Hmm.
These guys were mostly from Syria and Iran, um, and they were playing music and smoking hookah, and And I was on their trail. I wanted to meet them. I had heard about them. We had like tried to set this up, and I was somewhere else. And I got a call, and he's like, "Hey, we're meeting at the barber shop in like half an hour. Can you come?" And it was like 11:30, and so I went, and so obviously everything was closed. They all kind of worked odd hours. Most of them were like Lyft and Uber drivers, but this is when they could meet. And I guess the other part is that, there's so much talk, rightfully so, about extractive field work, right? And, go grab and go. And that is in a lot of ways, to a degree, you could say that's what I was doing. You could say it was grab and go, where I would push back against the idea that it's extractive is that you try to build up an understanding and a transparency about your intentions
Yes.
and goals so that it feels collaborative. Where it's like, just because I recorded their songs doesn't mean they can't play them anymore, right?
Hmm.
So it's not a zero sum game. Just because they tell me the stories and give an interview and I take their picture doesn't mean they can't tell that story again. And it's not like I'm making money off of it and copyright it, and all of that. It's just like you've still got it. And as long as you understand crystal clear as much as I could explain, because that's the other trick. Oftentimes when you're doing this kind of field work,
Yeah.
because they think you work for a newspaper.
Yes. Yes.
They're like, where's this story going to run? What
Yes.
newspaper? And I was like, oh, it's not really like that. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with it. Which is both good and bad. It's bad because I wish I had an answer for that, and that's actually something that I'm working on here. That my predecessor Langston Wilkins set up to have like a really robust online journal, so there
Mhm.
is a place for
Yeah.
this stuff
Yeah.
to go. But it's also the reason why you have like 2 hour long conversations, that newspapers aren't interested in. Newspapers, who, what, when, where, why, how, pull quote, thank you so much for your time. How do you spell your last name? Goodbye. You know,
Hmm.
and so I think as a good ethnographer, at least there's a million. I'm not going to go on good ethnographer. That's a graduate seminar. But I think that in terms of this work, the simple answer is as long as you can get to that third question, because the third question really opens the door.
Yeah.
Because no people usually aren't asked a third question. Hi, who are you? I'm Thomas. What do you do? I'm a folklorist. Oh, great. Two questions. The third question is, you're a folklorist. What the hell does that mean?
Hmm.
The third question is when you really start to open things up, and they really start to realize that, oh, this person actually cares. Because the second question is a polite follow up, but you still probably don't care. But the third question, I think gets to that. So I think that in terms of making public private, one, you have to remember that the types of private that there are, making private
Private
public.
public.
You have to
Yes.
remember. You have to remember that there are multiple types of private, and they don't necessarily mean not for public consumption. It's just that no one ever asked.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
just it just happened to be that way. And then as long as you are, ethical and collaborative and dialogic, and say like, hey, I would like to do this, you know um, I've encountered almost no resistance, and the resistance I have encountered has just been so clear it's not even a problem. People have said for a few, they're like, hey, can you not publish that? Like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want people to know that we don't have any money, or I don't want to know people. It's,
Yeah.
well, for whatever reason, those are also just made up reasons. It's happened very rarely, but I can remember a couple times they say like, remember when we talked about this? Can we just like not?
Oh
I
yeah.
don't
Oh
want
yeah.
to.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, sure, man. You know, that's fine. Like, that's because what it buys you in trust is always going to outweigh whatever nugget of information you
Oh
got
yeah.
by a
Oh
mile.
yeah.
You know, there's no gotcha ethnography, right? It's just not a thing.
Yeah. Oh, Thomas, that was like the last
Yeah.
year and a half of my life. That answer, I relate
Yeah.
so hard to that. Also, did you ever read
Yeah.
Dave McDonald's book, "My Voice Is My Weapon"?
You know, it's funny. I've never read any. I don't think I've read anything Davies ever
My
published.
my favorite
Sadly,
anecdote from that is when they're sneaking him into Palestine, and one of the like IDF people goes like, "And who's the blonde?" And his guy he's with goes, "Oh, Daoud, he's Yazidi," and they go, "Okay," and he just like walks through.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I
Um.
remember. I remember. I remember gnarly stories about how he had to get like hard drives in and out of
Yeah.
like across borders. He was going in and out of. That was really intense. But
Yeah. I don't have anything to add other than like I could tell you you know, Fort Myers Beach, Oldenburg, Indiana. I had a set, like a place memory of every little anecdote in that story. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Yeah. Um. Okay, we got
I
like
have,
a Daisy, go for it. If not, I've got like a more fun but still serious question.
I don't know. Feel like we should talk later because I have like a million questions.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
very interested in methodology, so I'm always
Yes,
like,
they are.
but how? But how is ethnography being measured, and what does collaboration mean? And so I'm just curious. Like, it maybe this even tied into like the question that or yeah, the answer that you gave earlier about like independent folklore, but something that I feel like can be really distinctly special that folklorists can do is use community engaged methods to actually show how I don't know that I feel like people think that folklorists just walk into communities and talk to them and record stories, but like there are certain methods that we use to actually prove and show the participation levels that we are experimenting
Yeah, we're
with in
not
our
just
different
hanging out.
communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like people don't know that folklorists like do that part. They think that we just hang out with people and record stories, but they don't see the part where we're actually measuring participation or interest or like taking data from the community like do you actually care about this project? What do you want out of this? Like none of those that like ephemeral note taking seems to I guess you could call that in part field notes, but even more of it like calendar dates when you're setting meetings like none of all of that is really interesting measurable data about the methods that folklorists use that I feel like gets implied or like is like something that you learn on the job. I don't Is that your experience being an independent folklorist like having to negotiate
It's
with so many different communities, all of your projects look different and you can't just stamp ethnography on all of them.
That is true. That is 100% true.
Okay, so I feel like
The
off the rail there
I
for a second maybe.
but I think that the the challenge as an independent and anyone who is a contract worker is blending. It kind of speaks to what you were saying when your time at the AFC of like what are your interests like how I think that contractors should be really upfront about their interest, their comfort level of their methods, the way they like to work, um, and have good conversations with the staff of that organization and how it fits into the project. Um, I will admit that I was not always the best at doing that. Um, Sometimes I was just frustrated by the programs, what I saw limitations of their programs because it ended up if a program was if they only had like one thing going, then field work ended up just being a simple yes or no gatekeeping, like just walking around saying yes you're good for this, no you're not, and then
Right.
that's it. And um, that's it means that it's harder to work as a field worker. It means that in on the organization side you're gonna burn a lot of time because if you can't flex to meet people where they are, um, it just means you just waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I don't think that any time is wasted meeting people and being an honest, you know, uh, time with them. But, conversely, some programs who really value deep, long community engaged projects, it's really, really hard for a contractor to have any impact on that or have any play in that if they don't live in that community, if they can't return to it, if they don't have any personal investment in it. Because they're, in the world of public folklife agencies, some, they operate very differently, right? And some are very deep, few programs, very deep connections. Some of them are more surface level, funding opportunities. Like, we don't need to know who you are. You're doing great work. Here's a couple grand, and I'm not here to stand in judgment on which is better or which is worse, but they do require fairly different needs of the staff and radically different concepts if you're talking about a contractor.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Thomas, can I ask you one last serious question?
Serious question. Okay, I'll give a serious answer.
But
okay.
What is something you only learned about Portland because you were on the local planning committee for the 2023 American Folklore Society annual meeting?
Something I learned about Portland just based on my participation on the local planning committee?
Yeah.
Just based on my participation. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna get it wrong. So I'm not gonna get it right. Okay, Rick March. I don't know honestly, I don't know what's happening on the planning committee, or on the program. I don't know how this has shaped up, or if it happens or not. But Rick March was telling me that there is this senior, I think it's at a senior center. So Rick March was a public folklorist in Wisconsin for decades. He had down home radio hour. I'm missing something in the name. Homeland Radio Hour. He is a radio guy, an accordion player, and now lives in Portland. He was telling me about this Japanese American senior center, or a senior center that is maybe just serves a lot of Japanese American communities, with this band, this kind of jazz band that has this whole education component about Japanese American history in the Pacific Northwest, its relationship to internment camps in the area, and celebration of that. But they all play music from the 40s, this old time jazz. I'm gonna say 65% of what I just said was accurate. So there's a big margin of error there. But I'm trying to think about something that was specific to that. It's really difficult because I don't live in Portland, but I am on the local planning committee because AFS hasn't been in the Pacific Northwest in so long, and because we don't really have a program in Portland, right? Because OFN and Oregon are in Eugene. There's a certain Washington component that's trying to jump in and help and kind of see if we can't get our Pacific Northwest-ness in there too.
Pacific Northwest folk life. Let's make it happen.
Also, Gooey Demon in chat, who is a Pacific Northwestander, who's an Oregonian, I believe, asked if that's Ikoi no Kai. Is that the senior center?
Name? Is that the senior center?
Ikoi no Kai? I won't.
Okay. It could be.
Even if you said the right name, I wouldn't know. I can find out. When this goes up on YouTube, it could be the first comment.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
The first comment would be Rick March says he has no idea what Thomas was talking about. He disavows any knowledge.
Any knowledge of this.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Thomas, you want to get into the fun questions? Lightning round some fun questions real quick.
Let's get lightning round silly.
Okay, what is the go-to snack with Camp Canada at Clifftop?
The go-to snack with Camp Canada at Clifftop. It's a great question.
Thank you, Slips.
Camp Canada are gourmands for sure, but there's so many West Virginians, or at least there was when I was hanging out. There was a lot of like cooking with ramps. So
Rams.
you'd have a lot of like scrambles, because also after a few days at Clifftop, you don't know if you want breakfast or dinner or coffee or a beer. You don't know because you don't know how long you've been awake.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of scrambles, and a lot of ramps because you can't get ramps in Canada.
That's good. I like that. What is your all-time favorite pair of frames that you own?
Oh, so I really struggle with that. I wonder. It can't, I don't. It might be these. It might be these.
Those are
But
iconic. When you showed up to the Discord call with those, I'm like, oh yes, he's wearing the aqua ones.
they are iconic. It's funny because I straight up stole them from a dear friend of mine who had these, and I'm like, those are amazing. Where'd you get them? And he told me it's like online. And we were living in or he was. I was in Santa Fe and he was in Denver at the time. So I said, "Oh, great, we don't live in the same place. I'm gonna get your same glasses." And then he moved back to Santa Fe, and then we went out to lunch one time, and I said, "I'm not gonna bring these because these are his glasses. He was there first." So I showed up with these glasses, which are
Whoa!
technically called smoke. And motherfucker, if he didn't have the exact same glasses,
Who's this friend?
So-
Is this a?
You have a fashion.
He's not a
creator.
folklorist. He's a phenomenal artist. He's a photographer. His name's Brian Stife. The Art Nerd is his Instagram.
Nice.
He's really fantastic photographer. Did a whole project on wind turbines for solar power all over the world.
Cool.
Really interested in European wind turbines, both economically, environmentally, and the physical vision of them. So the problem, these are complicated though, because they are iconic. I think maybe too iconic, but they're really helpful, especially if you only know people via Zoom. Because these will like lock me in. I'm like, oh, that's Thomas with the glasses. Thomas with the glasses, right? Becky with the good hair. Thomas with the glasses. And when we were all masking, and I was like, I didn't have a mask, and I had a mask but no glasses. This is generic white guy, right? This is like, this could be anyone. And I put the glasses on, and it's like, oh, Thomas. So that was really helpful. I think that. So I was like on Zoom calls with Queen Noor all through COVID.
Oh, she rules.
Like then I didn't actually meet her in person until Harrisburg for the first time.
Cool.
That was the first time we were in the same room.
That's cool.
She did this exact thing. I walked up to her. I was like this, and she's like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Queen, hey," and she's like, "Thomas, oh my god,"
That's awesome.
I'm like, yeah, so.
Everyone asks me like, Dom, when you like, why'd you get rid of the beard? And this is why, because I was done with the beard for the entire 2010s, and then 2020 really called me out on like the rest of my face.
Yeah. I found Brian Steve's Instagram, and it is public. And it's funny because there's a picture of him with your glasses, but they're his glasses.
No, Daisy.
But they're his glasses.
Here's a scoop.
But they're your glasses.
Here's a scoop.
But they're his glasses, but they're your glasses. So anyway, it's really funny.
A couple more of these. Thomas, what is it about Ren from Footloose that continues to inspire you to this day?
So this is the greatest. Like, just if you grew up like, you grew up. I don't think I thought I was gay. I think I've always identified as like mostly heterosexual, but I didn't like my heterosexual men like icons, right?
Yeah.
Um, I had as a kid growing up, and Footloose was filmed in Utah. A lot of people, I think
Oh
that
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah,
people think it was Texas. I'm like, Texas? That's in Utah, man.
yeah.
Like,
No.
um, so the whole like, they just don't come out and say Mormon when John Lithgow's character, and that's pretty far from like what the Mormon Church is, but so you Footloose was filmed in Texas, and as someone who was looking for a icon as a role model for a different kind of masculinity, Ren McCormick's masculinity just hit the
Mm.
sweet spot, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. He was everything I wanted to be. He got the girl, and he also had the moves. And he was friendly, and he was tough to bullies when he had to be, but only when he had to be. He was a lover, not a fighter. You know, and then there's only one. He only gets in one fight, and he says, "You're a goddamn hero" when it's 5-1, and then he kicks him in the face. I want to be that guy.
Yeah,
You know.
Maybe it's because I played D&D last night, but you were surrounded by strength builds, being like, "Where is my Dex build? I relate to a
yeah,
Dex build."
yeah.
And
Hell
then
yeah.
this actually cues you up into our last funsy, which is other than hopscotch, what was another Utah specific thing that you might not have noticed if you hadn't lived elsewhere?
Related to games.
Related to anything.
Okay, well, this is I think pretty obvious. I think I'm curious. All right, I'm gonna give
And Daisy lived in
if
Logan, so they can chime in. Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah,
thinking about like
I have a Utah Dar now for
I'm
living
also
there.
thinking of like what Lynn McNeil and Lisa
Oh
Gabbert and
yeah,
like all like they're gonna take a moment and they're like, oh, what is the thing? And they're running it over in their head too. It's got to be funeral potatoes. It's got
Oh,
to be funeral
yeah.
potatoes because I and there's a I don't know why I'm looking around for it. I don't have it here. This is the plate.
I was gonna say, do you have
oh
it
There's a
on you,
great
yeah.
Daisy? Yeah.
anthology.
I do.
There's a great anthology on
I don't
Utah
think I have
foodways
it
called "This
actually.
Is the Plate," which
That
is a
was
pun
that was Lynn McNeil's
on.
tier list for returning guests of chat. We had to rank the
Yep,
recipes.
the recipes, and this is the plate.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's
and
great.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, funeral potatoes are what the Relief Society, which is the Mormon, um, you know, auxiliary support group
Yeah.
that shows up with I think what anywhere else would call a hot dish or a casserole,
Mm-hmm.
and they show up to someone in your ward, which is your church, your Mormon church, um, with funeral potatoes. And funeral potatoes are not a recipe as much as a concept. They're generally considered to be like a potatoes au gratin kind of cheesy, creamy, um, hot dish kind of thing, but there are a lot of varieties. Even growing up in Utah as a non-Mormon, you would even in non-Mormon functions, and most of my extended family
Yeah.
was Mormon, but none of my immediate family was. We'd talk about funeral potatoes, and I don't know when it was, but it was later than it probably should have been that I realized that we were often referencing them decontextualized from a funeral. So,
Sure.
it would just be like, "Oh, great, great. We're gonna have like what's for dinner tonight, Mom? We're having pork chops, and we're having Brussels sprouts, we're having funeral potatoes. That sounds great,
Who died?
And I don't know when it was, but like later in life, someone brought that to my attention that was kind of odd, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can see how that might be."
yeah,
If because yeah, it's
it'd be
just one
kind
of
of
those
weird.
things you just
Yeah.
forget that is a regionalism.
Hmm.
That I've only ever had funeral potatoes at as Jesse Riddle's contribution to brunch. But of course, no one died at brunch. We're just having funeral
Yeah.
potatoes.
Yeah.
The brunch. I don't really associate them with brunch, but I can see
Really
it.
soaks up the mimosa.
Yeah, yeah. Sobers
Very
you up,
good.
and then you have to take a nap.
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect Sunday.
but yeah, that sounds glorious.
All right, do we want to move confidently into our final segment?
I think we do.
Okay. Daisy, can you contextualize this while I share screen to Thomas real quick?
Yes. So, every once in a while on our show, we get a guest that is different than our standard guest in terms of what game we play at the end of the interview. Usually, we make a tier list with them, and we're ranking things in everyday life that they would be an expert on ranking, like, I don't know, cool horror movies or
The recipes in This Is the Plate.
yeah, exactly. But you happen to be one of these special guests that we could not do this without. I don't know. We couldn't interview you without drawing attention to music. So we have crafted a space on our Folkwise Spotify account, a playlist for you to draft
Okay.
of old time jams.
Of old time jams. Okay.
So if you haven't already hit watch stream on
Yeah.
Discord, I've brought up Spotify for you here.
All right, I'm gonna pull it up.
You are joining. Can we take a look at the everyone who has done a playlist? Because you're joining the ranks of Derek Peter, Panayotis League, Suyash Nupana, the late Mickey Weems, and Dorian Urich as the contributors to the Folkwise playlists. So.
Pat make a playlist too?
No,
he
Pat
didn't.
ranked the members
No,
of
he didn't. He ranked the
Gwar.
members.
But he made
ranked
us listen to
them, that's what
Gwar
it was.
songs.
He ranked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ranked the members of Gwar. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Pat Jarrett, everyone.
Pat
but
Jarrett.
so Thomas, I have this.
That's the most Pat Jarrett thing I've ever. Pat
He was
Jarrett
the expert on that thing.
ranking the members of Gwar from his motorcycle touring the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the most. Yeah.
That's
And
the
doing
most
this
Pat
a
Jarrett
lot.
thing you can. It's awesome.
So Thomas, I think we can do about like 10 or so, and I'll play like a little snippet whenever you say. But
Yeah.
and
these are in no particular order.
order.
No ranking.
But
just...
but if you follow Folkwise on Spotify, people will be able to listen to your playlist.
So this is like whatever I want, just things I love, just
Things you love.
the best. Okay, all right. So we're gonna go from like, if you don't know old time, you start with 1, and if you do know old time, you can start with like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So if you just don't know what
I like this.
what old time music is, let's go with Tommy Jarrell.
How do you spell that again?
Jarrell.
There we go. And what song?
And let's go with I don't know, Sail Away Ladies. There's
saw it.
yeah, Sail Away, that's an album, but yeah, it's a tune as well.
Where is it?
Cluck Old Hen. Do Cluck Old Hen.
Where is that? Cluck Old Hen. Add it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Chat and
Cluck Old Hen.
Chat should be able
This
to
is
hear
the
it.
most pedagogically sound playlist we've ever made.
This is I think that Tommy Jarrell has I'm trying to remember the version, but I think he's got a pretty good cluck. There's a version, there's a part of that tune where you do a little pizzicato where you just like pluck the strings, and that's the cluck. And I think Tommy's is pretty good. Okay, so we got to get something off the Harry Smith anthology, because this is the Bible. So it's got to come from here. The anthology of American folk music, edited by Harry Smith.
Oh yeah.
Reissued by Smithsonian Folkways, and it's fantastic. Now, here's a question while I stall for time. Do you, does it need to be universally considered old time, but not necessarily tunes, right?
No, hit me with your spiciest
it's your-
submission. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think this is your like personally curated playlist. You know. I
So
think-
there's to get a little pedantic for a second. So old time like refers to this time in music before. I mean, it really is the codification of genres. Old time was a genre. Like certain labels said, old time tunes.
Mhm.
When you couldn't listen to them, you just had to like buy the record, without hearing it, and send away to the Victrola company. And this was code. It was code for white, because
Sure.
race records
Yeah.
were black people music. So old time tunes were white people music. And so over the years, a kind of interesting thing has happened where old time has often become analogous to fiddle tunes, which by the very nature of being a tune, it doesn't have words, or even if it has words, like Cluck Old Hen or Sail Away Ladies, you often just don't sing them. You just play it because they're four square dances, essentially. So you often don't sing. So Cluck Old Hen has lyrics, but half the time in recordings they won't sing anything. So okay. So I think on Spotify, if you pull up the Harry Smith anthology of American folk music, we're gonna do Brilliancy Medley by Eck Robertson. Oh, that's a late one. Eck Robertson is not. It's fine. I'm getting too much. I'm like. I don't ever talk about old time music anymore.
Am I on the right album?
All right.
Hell yeah.
No, Minglewood Blues, John Sebastian. This is going to be a tribute. This is going to be a tribute.
got it,
John
got it.
Sebastian was the Love and
Give me
Spoonful.
the song. Give me the song.
Brilliancy, but wait, no, let me stop. Okay, we got to stop. We have to do a Carter Family song.
Yes.
We have to do
okay, okay.
Depression. We have to do No Depression in Heaven by the Carter Family, which is one of like the three greatest songs ever written. It's maybe one of the three greatest Carter Family. Yeah, hell yeah, all day. Recorded in the Bristol Sessions, 1927, Bristol, Tennessee. Yeah, huge. Okay, let's. I'm being too.
No, this is
too
good.
Overly. So let's do
this. We have tasked you with an insurmountable and possibly task. No, okay.
No,
so
it's exciting.
There's so many. There's so much music. It's hard to choose.
There's so much music. I want to put Henry Lee on there, and we're gonna go with we're gonna go with Dick Justice. See if you can find Henry Lee by Dick Justice. Now, Henry Lee by Dick Justice was on the anthology, but for those who don't love old time music, Nick Cave and PJ Harvey do a killer version. And like
I love that song. Yeah.
I feel like half the people who love old time come through it by some kind of like Nick Cave, PJ Harvey, punk, DIY, some kind of aesthetic. Like the Nirvana song, this is another one we could put on the Longest Train I Ever Saw.
Oh.
Which was by a band called the Geneva Ramblers, which was recorded by Leadbelly, which ended up on Nirvana's Unplugged album as Where Did You Sleep Last Night?
Right.
Yeah, that all goes back again to the Bristol Sessions, 1927, which is the museum that Jessica Turner was the head of when she gave me my first job in the field as the director of education.
Where do you keep your conspiracy theory map about the deep lore of old time music across connections.
Oh,
to
like
the
your
folklore
pinboard with
community.
strings?
Like
Yeah.
like your little pin board with like all your, which is where I was during this time, and where Jessica was doing this, and where I did. Yeah.
Hey, where does Dave Lewis factor
In
into
20
this?
And 100 years ago, this thing happened.
Yeah. Dave Lewis was right in the center of it.
He always is.
You know what I'd like. You know what I'd like to say. Back to people who are early career.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Lewis and I got hired simultaneously. He was the director of collections. I was the director of education.
Dave Lewis, come on, Folkwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Lewis, come on, Folkwise.
Yeah.
And Dave Lewis and I were hired before either of us had finished our dissertations, and hired to basically start these programs. The museum hadn't even opened when we got hired. The number of times, it's far enough now, and we've said this to Jessica Turner, but the number of times we shared an office, Dave and I did, and the number of times we had to close our door and ask each other questions we were too embarrassed to admit we didn't know the answer to was a godsend.
That's awesome.
It was so great.
I love that.
I would be like,
That's
Dave, can
awesome.
you close the door? And I'd be like, Dave, what am I supposed to do about this? And I'm like, I don't want to admit to anyone that I have no idea. And so to have someone like that, and there were times when we would call other museums. Luckily, we had friends at other museums. I don't remember what the issue was, but we called a friend of ours from IU, Rich Walter, who was out in Phoenix at the Musical Instrument Museum.
Oh, yeah.
And we were having some issue with the instruments in our museum. And we're like, close the door. Everyone, close the door. And we're like, Rich, what are we supposed to do about this? We're like, it's all screwed up, and we don't know what to do. And he's like, you just do this, and you do this, and you do this. And so we're like, great. And then we walked into Jessica's office, and we're like, we know what to do. We do this, and we do this, and we do this. And we had learned it 30 seconds before. Like that, being able to have that kind of measured, honesty and vulnerability, because if you fake it, you're going to just delay yourself so much longer. But you got to fake it to certain people. So having the people who you trust enough that you can be so honest and they're not going to think you're overall stupid, just specifically stupid.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you're smart in general. You're just stupid about this one tiny thing. So that's fine. Okay. Back to
Which version of In the Pines? Which version of In the Pines?
Yeah.
In the Pines. Can you find? Wait, In the Pines. It's not going to be called the In the Pines. It's going to be called The Longest Train That I Ever Saw.
Oh, okay.
For anyone who is still watching, old time music started in 1921 and still continues today, but it predates bluegrass by 25 years. Bluegrass came on the scene in the late 40s.
This is the one that is called that on Spotify.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, got it.
That's it. Yeah, the Geneva Ramblers.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We have a Carter family.
Daisy. People can't see it on stream because I cropped it, but you remember Brandon Barker saying he has a framed photo of his wife and kids next to a framed photo of the singing Brakeman? This is the photo.
Yes.
This is the photo he has framed.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
So the singing Brakeman was Jimmy Rogers. You got to do Blue Yodel number 2.
Oh, Blue
Yodel number 2.
Let's go. I know this.
Or Waiting for a Train. Or Waiting for either one. Whichever one comes up sooner.
Blue Yodel number 9 comes up first. Let's do Waiting on a Train. Here we go.
Oh, Blue Yodel number 2. Maybe it's just number 1. T for Texas. I was like, what?
Oh, T for Texas. Yeah, that's number 1.
Well, that's also known as Blue Yodel number 1. Yeah, T for Texas, T for Tennessee.
It's the same.
Let's do. Yeah.
I mean, they're both jams. They're both bops.
Yeah, Blue Yodel, T for Texas.
1927 bop. Yeah. All right, other essentials. All right, we got to get the best.
Tennessee. I'm sorry. What's
How
that?
many do we have?
We have 5. Halfway there.
All right. So we're gonna do a radical switch, and we're gonna leap ahead. These are foundational
This is
texts.
amazing.
This is
Okay,
Now
number
let's
here's
6.
the
talk
This is
about-
number
standard.
6. Yeah.
Now we're
Let's
gonna talk
deconstruct.
about. We're gonna do 2 transitional. We're gonna go to what are called the revivalists, right?
Got it.
We're not gonna complicate that phrase. So
Okay.
we're gonna go to probably the most. We're gonna go to. Oh man, there's so many things to do right now. We're gonna go to the new Lost City Ramblers.
How do you spell
And
that? New Lost City
the
Ramblers.
new
Yep.
Lost City Ramblers. And we're just gonna go to one of my favorite songs, which is Peg and All. Now, I don't know if there's anything super PEG. Peg and no, sorry, all AWL.
Oh.
Ah.
Here we go. Well, we got a Pete Seeger.
So the new Lost City Ramblers contained one of the band members was Mike Seeger, was Pete Seeger's half brother.
Oh, interesting.
And if Pete was like the populist, like everybody sing along, everything's everything, folk is whatever we make of it. Mike Seeger was like, actually, this song comes from this county in Southwest Virginia, and I learned it from this, and it's actually a modal tune that we're gonna play in this key, and and it's like he was the nerd scholar.
Sure.
But Peg and All is one of my favorite songs, and Micah Ling does a great version on her album.
Friend of
She
the
was
show.
recently on the
Friend of
show. Yeah.
Yeah. So
is there
her
another?
album-
Is there another version that would work?
Well, let's do Micah's. Is Micah's?
Oh my god, I don't know if that's on Spotify.
check-
You think?
Check. I think
Michael
is her album
Ling.
called Kingdom Come. I think is her album.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah.
I got the hard copy in my bedroom right now.
Nice.
I got it on my shelf. Yeah, Peg and All. There you go,
Oh, that's
Micah. Ling.
Micah.
Great version.
We didn't have Micah do a playlist. She ranked pizza, but it was a stealth way to get her to talk about how good Detroit pizza is.
Yeah.
So Micah categorically belongs to the current practitioners, but I want to do
Okay.
another transitional
Please.
act. And we're going to do one that is near and dear to, well, these are all near and dear to the folklore community. But for those who knew the late, great Alan Jabbour, Alan Jabbour was in a really
Florida,
seminal
right there.
band.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, exactly, right? Alan Jabbour, state folklorist of Florida, first director of the American Folklife Center. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. If ever the phrase "a Southern gentleman" comes up, I always think of Alan Jabbour.
Yeah.
He was the kindest, most gentle, sweet, gracious man I may have ever met in my life.
Yeah.
He was so great. So he was in a band called the Hollow Rock String Band. And from Hollow Rock, I'm just gonna go Kitchen Girl. That's just a classic tune. Kitchen Girl, that's one that gets played. That's an all instrumental album. So that is a big part of the whole dance tradition. Square dance. Are they not?
It's possible they're not on Spotify.
I don't know if they are.
I mean, they are. I think they only did that. Okay, let's try Fuzzy Mountain String Band. So this is another of these like revivalists. Now the Fuzzy Mountain String Band had Blanton Owen among others.
Blanton Owen, yeah.
Blanton Owen was also a. I never knew Blanton, but a seminal folklorist. Oh, Barlow Knife. Barlow Knife's a classic tune. That's a great.
Up top.
Yeah, number one, Barlow Knife. The first one on the popular songs. So
This goes hard.
So those are the two transitional. So Micah is part of the current trajectory. So I'm going to give you a couple others. I can't go without highlighting at least one Canadian band.
Of course.
So we're going to go my favorite. I shouldn't say it. They don't care. The Lonesome Ace String Band. See if they're on here. The Lonesome Ace String Band. These guys are just the best.
We got two songs from them.
Oh, you know what? Those are all solid, but actually I take it back. Put in the names Showman and Cool, Coole.
How do you do that? What's the first one?
Showman, Showman, and then Coole. These are two last names.
Getting.
Don't put an and in there. Just Showman Cool.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, see if there's.
Well, they love that Hugh Jackman movie.
Because if they have their album,
No,
we're gonna get. Wait, what's that yellow one?
That yellow?
Go back to that yellow album. I'm trying to remember what their album is called. Go back to the options they were just showing.
Over here?
Yeah.
This is artists.
Yeah. Go down to that says album, the Julia Bell Swain. Go back to where you were. Sorry, I might be lagging behind you.
Might be. Oh, here. Oh, Showman and Cool.
So,
The
yeah.
Julia Bell Swain.
That's.
It's a single.
Just
it's
add
a single.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay, just add that one. So that is a song by John Hartford, who is both the greatest old-time musician ever and the greatest bluegrass musician ever. And the people who know what I'm talking about are going to be like, absolutely, or you're absolutely wrong. There's like no in between. They're either going to say you're 100% right or you're 100% wrong. But John Hartford is, I just want to hear what Micah Ling thinks about that statement. Okay.
Whoa, this
Someone
is
clip it.
So the next we're going to go to Steam Machine.
Oh, it's my favorite Daft Punk song. Right there.
And I think we're going to do China, if they're on there. I didn't even know if that was a Daft Punk song. Okay. See if you can get one. See if you can do, I think they, maybe Chinese Breakdown. Yeah, the first artist, Steam Machine. Nope. I take it back.
Breakdown. I don't see it.
I don't see it either. They may not be on Spotify. Steam Machine is the band that relates to folklore in that the recently departed state folklorist of Minnesota, Rena Rossi, is the guitar player of Steam Machine. And they are really great. Okay, we're gonna do. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing so many people. Okay, we're gonna do one for Indiana. Let's go to Brad Leftwich, and this is a little nod to Bloomington, Indiana.
Yep.
And where Brad Leftwich lives, and what's the Da, 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 da. You guys know what's it called?
Do it one more time.
No, you're not gonna. You want me to do it to embarrass myself?
No,
Here, I don't know why I haven't been looking on here as well. Okay, so Brad Leftwich, what we want is the Hogwire String Band, and the name of the song. Oh, there's two that are really good. We're gonna do Rascal Fair. Hogwire String Band, Rascal Fair.
with an E at the end.
No. Oh, and then I know the last one. The last one has got to be
Got it.
Ain't No Actual
Brad Leftwich and the Hogwire String Band.
Okay, yeah. Brad is a absolute legend in old time music. Literally wrote some of the books on fiddling and banjo playing. An incredible exemplar of what's called the round top, round peak style, and just also one of the nicest people in the entire world. Really got me going on everything. All right, there's two. I need at least 11, maybe a baker's dozen, but they're gonna come fast.
Let's do it.
They're gonna come fast. Okay, so we gotta shout out to the Carolina Chocolate Drops.
I was waiting.
And I think if you already know the Carolina Chocolate Drops, then you would already know. But we're gonna do cornbread and butterbean.
There we go.
Because if you don't know the Carolina Chocolate Drops, this is the gateway drug. You're gonna listen to this song, you're gonna fall in love, you're gonna be like, give me more of that. Same is true of a song called Ain't No Ash Will Burn. And there's going to be... And
yeah, who you looking for?
I'm looking for if they have Chance McCoy. And they do. It's a band called Old Sledge. Ain't No Ash Will Burn. Fiddle player is Chance McCoy, good friend of Jenny Williams.
Oh, hell yeah. Friend of the show.
Past guest of the show, yeah.
I just found out they were friends like last week. I'm so jealous.
Aww.
All right. That's 11. Are we going to Baker's Dozen?
Baker's Dozen.
Okay.
We're gonna do an outlier.
Extra credit.
We're gonna do an outlier just for fun. We're gonna go to a Wapango Son Huasteca from Mexico via New Mexico in a nod to my contract life, and we're gonna go Lone Pinon, Pinon with a tilde over the N.
You said Tinon?
P is in Peter, like the single pine.
Oh, got it.
The Lone Pinon. Let's just do La Llorona, because again, if you already know Lone Pinon, you already know these guys, but if you don't, there's your gateway drug, La Llorona. And he does it real dramatic, so it's fun. He's like trying to weep as he sings.
Do they have it on here?
So is it not? Wait, but I'm not finding it.
It doesn't look like it's coming up as La Llorona.
Why isn't that album on here?
Well, you got another one by Lone Pinon?
Yeah, I think that we're gonna go with they're not the right ones. Everything is so. We're gonna go with from Trio Nuevo Mexicano. If you see that one.
Yep.
Track 8, which is El Tecolote.
take a look.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if you like
Nice.
that, folks, there's more where that came from.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. That's
Also really good friends of mine. That's the best reason to do field work, is that you end up making friends.
That's true.
With awesome people.
Yeah, with people who are super creative and interesting and just sharing themselves with the world. Or trying to. Yeah.
They're in Chicago on Sunday. Okay. You said Baker's Dozen. Is there one more you're tying a bow on this with?
Oh, because that's just a regular dozen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's see. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's.
Could also be a regular dozen.
Let's. I'm trying to think of something that might be, again, interesting of what people are doing with old time today. There's so many, but wait, did we do is Where'd You Sleep Last Night on there?
Longest Train I ever saw. Yeah.
Did we do that?
We did Longest Train.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do something from Jake Blunt, because that's a name. But let's go with something. So Jake Blunt, BL. He's if you don't know who Jake Blunt is and you care about this, you either don't actually care about this, or you will hear his name very, very soon. He's lighting it on fire. Let's go back to Spider Tales. So BLOUNT.
I got it. We're
just gonna go classic. We're gonna go Roustabout.
Roustabout.
Track 2.
Hell yeah.
That's a great. It's not the most original, but it's like so solid, and he's such a great musician. It's gonna be really good. Yeah.
How do you feel about this playlist?
Hell yeah.
This looks really good. This is we got vocal, we got instrumental, we got the foundational stuff, we've got the revivalist again. I'm not my word. It's fine. Love those guys. And then we've got the contemporary class. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think it's good.
Hell yeah.
Excellent.
This rocks.
Well, I put the link in chat. We'll also post it on Discord, and it'll be in the link to the YouTube video. But this is the official Thomas Grant Richardson's Old Time Jams Volume 1. And with that, Thomas, sorry we kept you a little late. You must be hungry.
Yeah.
But we're
That's
having
right,
way too much fun. We're having way too much fun there. And before we send you on your way and post ladders in chat, do you have anything you're trying to plug on your way out?
Not really. I'm trying to, plug the work of others, because that's a huge, as that's a huge part of what we do, is just hyping up other people.
Yeah.
I'm excited, if people who watch this show, going back to our conversation about people who are early career.
Mm-hmm.
Early career happens earlier than I think a lot of us are ready for. I think going back to the pipeline, we often are asked to kind of start our career before we're done with our schooling, whenever we even want, whatever stage we want to be done in our schooling. So I would just double down on what I think it's said a lot, but I don't think it can be said too much, is that if you're our early career, and be someone doing work that you would think you might like to do, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Because there's no, there's no, if there are egos in folklore, they don't hang around that long, right? There's maybe like 4 egos in folklore, and we all know who they are, and no one talks to those people anyway. So mostly it's a very egoless group, and if you can say like, hey, I want to know more about what you do, you don't have to have read their book or know everything about their work inside and out. Just say hey, And I think that people are flattered by that, you know. And if you come to the annual meeting this year in Portland, I think that's all you need to start a conversation and say, I think I would like to know more about what you do. And then sometimes that is a helpful conversation. Sometimes it is a transitional conversation where, like, you think you want to talk to me, but really you want to talk to Daisy, or really you want to talk to Dom, or really you want to talk to someone else, because I just
Yeah.
know a couple more things than you do about what
Mhm.
the future is for you, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes it's like, oh, you want to do that? That's great, because I'm hiring next year. So come do that for me, you know. So
Yeah.
I really
Exactly.
just, I mean, I feel like I if I've had a modicum of success, it's entirely because I just know people, and that is the one skill I possess. Is I know people, and I've been fortunate enough to pick, you know, really good people to know who have always um, been, you know, looking out for me, particularly at times when I needed looking out for, because I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm really grateful to those people, and I think that that's just how the world works. So don't be shy. Um, you know, come and talk to me, talk to whoever, reach out.
Talk to us.
That ended up being an amazing plug for the concept of
Yeah.
like reciprocity.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mhm.
Uh, people, Thomas is on his way out, but in the meantime, ladders in chat. For our man Thomas.
As,
Thank you so much. Ladders rolling, and there
Thank
we
you
go.
guys. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was super, super fun.
I had a
Thanks for
great
coming on the
time.
show.
Yeah.